Hey, folks, and welcome to the highly anticipated and very well attended event here with Anton Osika and Oliver Melander. Just a quick intro from the panelists here before we jump into the action-packed questions that we have for Anton. I'm Vincent Weir. I'm the founder of Growth Minds, which is the leadership community here in Stockholm that has the pleasure of hosting this event. I'm joined by Oliver Melander, who is a partner at Zenith Ventures and leading the Inception Fund, which is an AI-focused strategy. And of course, Anton Osika, the CEO of Europe's fastest growing AI company and just company in general. Welcome, guys. Let's dive in. Anton, you seem to be at the office. Are you there right now?
Of course, and I'm not alone.
You're not alone. So I just want to start there. A recent Eurofound report suggests that Europeans especially Swedes, are working 55 hours per week, only very infrequently. I think it's like 2 to 3% of the population in Europe that works over 55 hours a week. That's less than half of the percent of American workers doing the same. And of course, it's less for China. Do you think that that's a problem with the European working culture, or is it an advantage that it's a constraint that we have to deal with? Is it a strength?
I don't think it's a constraint, but I think that fewer people here in Sweden, for example, are extremely ambitious and care a lot about the mission or that you're on as a company, for example, makes it harder to be extremely successful, for sure. So to be extremely successful here, you need to beat that drum of becoming more ambitious all the time.
You chose to headquarter Lovable in Stockholm particularly, but let's say in Europe, at one of the most negative moments of the European press cycle about innovation in particular. Walk us through that decision.
Yeah, a good question. I was very close to building Lovable in the Bay Area or in San Francisco, but fate has it that I just realized that there's so many great people here in Stockholm, and I had, of course, more of my network here as well. So I've ended up just building up a really strong team here in Stockholm. So that and yeah, I thought about London as well, but I think Stockholm has a higher floor of great engineers. So there's a lot of great talent here.
Oliver, I know you had a question about the engineering talent that we have here.
Yeah, and pitching in there, Anton, I don't know if you agree with this, but I've been speaking with some friends of mine who work for the bigger AI labs, and one reflection they've had actually is that the threshold in Sweden to start a company or join a startup is lower, because it's quite difficult in the Nordics to make 7 figures in dollars salary as an individual contributor working in any type of technical position, whereas in London or in the Bay Area, you can easily make 7 figures working for one of the bigger AI labs. And hence, there's a bigger threshold actually to jump away from that security, versus in the Nordics and Sweden, we have the social security and everything. So actually, that should lower the threshold of joining a startup and taking the risk or starting a company.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one. It's a good point.
Cool. I want to I think part of what makes this conversation so interesting and able to attract, I think we have close to 300 people that signed up just for a webinar with less than 1 week's notice. Part of what makes this such a timely conversation to have is that there's also this kind of geopolitical element to what's happening. And really what we have in you, Anton, is a potential hero for Europe, right? So we have this kind of space race going, perhaps a Sputnik moment that just occurred with DeepSeek. And it's clear that there's these two superpowers that are kind of competing for AI. As mentioned in our intro to this event, you have a pretty interesting background that started at the same places as Sam Altman and the founder Liang Wenfeng from DeepSeek. So you obviously started your career at a algorithmic hedge fund, and then you went through Y Combinator. But you have something that neither of those two guys have, which is actually a uniquely European asset. You trained at CERN, right? The biggest world-class science infrastructure that we have here dedicated to physics and particle physics. So do you think that working with world-class physicists here in Europe gives you an advantage when it comes to working with AI? How do you think about that experience informing your your background?
I'd love to think that is the case. It's formed like being at a place like CERN where there's 10,000 extremely smart people huddled up in one place. That just makes if you're like me, it makes your head spin. Okay, this is kind of like similar to Manhattan Project. I think it's a more well-known, like stronger analogy. That you can assemble these people to do something that was previously impossible or might be thought of impossible. And I think that's the biggest part that I got away from that. I think seeing that this is possible, this is how it would look like. Unfortunately, I haven't tapped the network yet, at least, of like extremely strong physicists that could be helping immensely in furthering like the European AI cause. And I think that talent pool could really be tapped, but not just by Lovable, but by other companies that are pushing forward like some completely new technology.
Just stick with that space analogy for 1 second. You and I have talked about this before, but so when Elon Musk started SpaceX, the US space companies accounted for less than 1% of the world's commercial space launch revenues. And really, it was thanks to one person and one company that American space firms now have over 54% of that revenue pie today. And I guess it's proof that one person can have a dramatic impact on an industry. When you kind of talk to Elon about the early days of building SpaceX, he cited the fact that there was a relatively stagnant industry. People were not working very hard for Boeing and the other space companies. And he was able to recruit those engineers into the cauldron of SpaceX, where they knew that they could do great work and just dedicate themselves to something. Do you sense that the AI talent here in Stockholm or in Europe broadly is underutilized and hungry for that kind of opportunity the same way that the US space industry was?
Yeah, I do think so. I definitely think so. It's not as like it's not extremely palpable, but everyone I talk to about what we're doing are extremely excited about it and want to help. That's literally what I'm feeling right now, and more are waking up to that. Okay, how AI is applied is like the biggest factor for the future of the human civilization. It's that's definitely happening right now in Sweden.
Can you talk a little bit about this EU ACC movement? I know you're a fan. What is it and why do you like it?
Okay, so EU accelerationism is the movement, and European accelerationism, not the EU. And well, as you said, like we're going through a very bad press cycle for Europe right now. There are only all these memes about we're inventing the new caps for our water bottles, and this is a counter movement to that, and saying, okay, there's problems. We have to take this is a great best time ever to take them seriously and make sure that more people want to do accelerate technological change from Europe, right? And the movement has a few very concrete points in how that can be done by simplifying bureaucracy that like companies like ours have to struggle through in growing and selling commercial products across different countries in Europe. And I think this movement, which I started as a grassroots movement, is already pushing through pushing through legal changes in the European Union, and that you two probably know more than me about.
So what the emperors and conquerors were not able to achieve in terms of unifying the European continent, maybe the legislators will, or the grassroots Twitter movements.
Yeah, the grassroots Twitter movements and the tech optimists.
Because I guess that's the whole problem.
Here, yeah.
I mean, Europe has been such an attractive group of countries to unify, and ever since the Romans, we've been trying, but it obviously is very difficult. And so I'm like a little bit pessimistic about unifying the countries. And I think if we just look at our diversity and the differences that we have as a constraint that can breed, success in the same way that we see DeepSeek using constraints to accelerate their creativity, maybe that's another approach versus trying to copy the exact same playbook as America and say, let's have one type of cheese, American cheese, and let's syndicate it across all the 50 states and just erase all the culture that we have here and the unique diversity.
It would be ironic. Like the big thing we have going for this succeeding now is that we have painted a clear enemy, which is this meme. The enemy is the meme that Europe, while US innovates, China imitates, Europeans just regulate, and now that we can unify behind this meme and show that that's false. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Oliver. I know you're thinking a lot about it.
No, I agree. Like we need a joint goal, and I think that's a good goal. And in all honesty, I think it's a bit about breaking this, European mentality. And we've been speaking, Anton, about this, and I've been talking about it. That you look at the global AI talent, and the biggest AI breakthroughs. Actually, a lot of them, there's Europeans behind them. And you look at Google DeepMind, that's mainly Europeans, London. You look at Meta's Llama team, mainly French. And then, talking about your background, Anton, I think it's really interesting to see KTH, for example, right now, and how it's becoming this founder factory. And I think we need to talk about it more, in all honesty. Like, very few know that Ali Godsi is founder of Databricks, is a KTH alumni. And then we have this new generation of technical founders coming from KTH, and there's Eric Bernhardsson building Modal in New York, and then there is like Max Junestrand and these guys. And my question to you, because I studied in Finland, I didn't study in KTH, but why do you think that KTH is, for example, becoming a founder factory now, and why are we seeing now this new generation of technical talent? And I often say that they have absolutely no scare fights. These guys and girls go and compete to Silicon Valley with the best MIT, Stanford engineers from KTH, for example, and other universities also. But why do you think this is happening now at such a velocity here in Stockholm and Sweden?
It happens because we have role models here in Stockholm, and you mentioned a few of them. And talking about the success stories more, I think is exactly what is causing more of this change. Where, I think if you can, like, Netflix had a documentary about Bill Gates where he and his like who he was planning to start Microsoft with had a role model, like was it Dell or someone, and that they were always obsessed about building a company from a very, very young age, and that's what I think drove him to being so ruthless about making a successful company. And now we've had Skype and Spotify and like some of these role models from here, and now there's a new generation coming up from.
Yeah, can you highlight some of those people, Anton? We have a stage now, and there's clearly people doing great work here. Who are some of the folks you want to bring attention to?
I think some of the more recent success stories are companies like iSettle, Think, Sauna Labs. I think it's a great example, and many young founders want to imitate. The company I started before, Depict AI, and many of these companies they're spinning out like the next generation of founders from the companies as well in all of this.
Oliver, you're one of the biggest voices in the Nordic AI community right now. You follow people like no one else. What are some of the people that you want to bring attention to right now in this platform?
I think there's many, and there is, like I said, there's this younger generation. I'm 36, and I'm starting to feel old when I talk with these younger people. But looking in general, there's people like Peter Sarlin, for example, who co-founded Silo AI that was acquired by AMD during the summer for $665 million. And that's the largest pure play AI acquisition in Europe to date. That's larger than what Google paid for DeepMind. That's incredible. And then we have Arvid Lundemark, who's 25-year-old guy from Sweden who's building Cursor, valued now at $2 billion, and just became the fastest company in history to reach 100 million ARR. There's so many of these examples. We have, talking about Finns, we have Kari Saarinen, who's been linear on the West Coast, and that's one of the, I'd say, most prolific B2B software companies right now. And that's a Finnish person. So there's so many examples, and I think breaking this mentality barrier right now is a lot about bringing these people up and showing everybody, like Anton said, having these role models. Because what I'm always saying is that they eat the same porridge for breakfast in Silicon Valley or in New York. It's just a mentality thing. We have the technical talent here in the Nordics and Sweden also. It's equally good. And it's all about the mentality, and then naturally on a more political level, and there's EU Inc. right now. It's very clear that we need to start harmonizing EU so that we don't lose all of these great technical founders to the US too fast, and we make Europe and the EU a very attractive place to start building your company. And they always say it's not binary. I don't think we should approach it like US against Europe. US is really important for European companies, and vice versa. Europe should be really important for US companies. But as Anton mentioned, it's all about these role models, and I feel it's bubbling right now under the surface. There's a lot of things going on now, and a lot of new generation founders, young people who are talking to me how they've received offers from Anthropic or OpenAI, but they're thinking about maybe starting their company. And these are young Scandinavian technical talent. So I feel very optimistic. At the same time, we need to do more, and we need to talk about this more. And there, what you're doing, Anton, with Lovable is great. I think you're becoming one of the best role models now.
And let's spend some time talking about that. I know we don't have the most time for this session today. Let's get to the AI, the heart of the discussion. Yeah. Obviously, Anton, part of the reason that you are such a fascinating figure to follow right now is your company has gone from 0 to 10 million ARR in 2 months. Took 2 launches that failed before that to get to this point, but you're certainly one of the fastest growing companies. In fact, I'm curious, when we say that you're the fastest growing company, this week in startups, this last week you were on it, and they called you the fastest growing startup in the world. So I mean, there's quite a lot of people that see startups on a regular basis are very impressed. But Oliver, let's get to some of these AI questions that you've written, and I also have a couple from the Growth Minds community that I want to bring to you, Anton.
No, 100%. Yeah, definitely, and I think it's really interesting, Anton, to follow the journey of Lovable, and like I said, a great role model. And I think one big discussion I've been having with many people in the AI community and also the VC community is: can you build a $1 trillion company purely on the application layer, or do you need to move down to the infrastructure layer to some extent? And to that also, how do you build defensibility on the application layer? Because there's a lot of discussions that the model performance will converge for everybody at the same level. Either you're using Sonnet 3.5 or some other models. But what's your take there? One, can we build a $1 trillion company on the application layer? And what are the defensibilities that you can build on the application layer?
I think the defensibility and the moats and so like they exist outside of tech companies, and they are always going to be there. So there's like if you can use your scale to some certain advantage, that's a moat, pretty boring one. Certain network effects, and building a platform is typically a network effect where everyone's getting used to building on the same kind of choice of technology or something else, and which is very relevant for us, right? We're building a platform for people to build upon. So if you nail some of these platform plays or kind of scaling advantages, then 100% you can build a $1 trillion company. And if you're training your own model, or if you're just doing the application layer, I think that's very, very secondary. It's more about smart business decisions.
So it sounds like network effects and not switching costs are the power source.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most in the early stages of a company where we are now, execution is everything, and then like these modes that they have to be very, very secondary. Just executing fast is all that matters. And the first thing that you I think is good to focus on after that, which can make you build a $1 trillion company, is the brand. If you take Apple, I think they have good technology. Like there are others that have good technology. They have some network effects, like you got locked into the Apple's ecosystem. But the strongest kind of asset they have is their brand, and that's I think the simplest thing to focus on.
In terms of Europe, do you think that we would need at least one player on the foundation model infrastructure layer which can compete? We have now Mistral AI, but there's a lot of competition also from China. And I said last week that just imagine the excitement is if, for example, Mistral would have come out with the DeepSeek V3 or R1 update. But what's your take there? Like, do we need somebody on the infrastructure, or can we flourish on the application layer solely?
I mean, currently, we live in a very globalized world, so we can flourish on the application layer. But there is more of a geopolitical question, I think, in terms of that. If you could imagine that these currently very open APIs are not open in the future, at least not the frontier models are not open anymore. And for that reason, I definitely see a case for building a model or investing in having strong capabilities to push frontier models forward.
Are you able to use all cloud providers? Is there one that you think is best suited? This is a question from our builder community to you directly. Any key differences between the AI cloud providers?
No, I don't. I think all cloud providers are viable options for us. They invest differently much into companies like us. Like AWS has this insane program where they really want to help us, for example, and that's how we think about which.
I'm curious to hear, Anton. So based on what I've been talking, actually AI Code Gen is the first, I'd say, Gen AI use case with explosive product market fit. Yeah. And actually what I've been talking with people both in the US and Europe has been that, Sonnet 3.5 was a big unlock at the end of the day. At the same time, we can see Poolside. And by the way, Poolside, a US-based company, moved their headquarters to France, which is pretty awesome and a good inspiration. But they're naturally developing more use case specific LLMs, Poolside. But where do you see, from Lovable's view predicting the future, do you see that you will utilize more generalistic LLMs from the large providers or more code gen specific models, for example, from Poolside? Where do you see this moving right now? I guess it's quite hard to say anything yet, but keen to hear your take there.
Yeah. No, but I think if you're like how these foundation models work is that you have a very strong team that understands how to get the most out of large language models, and Anthropic clearly has such a team. They built the Claude, OpenAI, DeepSeek, and Google also have very strong teams. And if you have that capability to understand how to get the most out of them, and you obviously now point it quite strongly on code generation, then you're going to have very, very good code generation models. And I think that's my simplest model for where the best code generation models are going to come from. It's the ones that have the best teams to build great large language models in general. And
is there any moats on the LLM foundation model layer, or is it going to be commodity technology going to marginal cost? I guess that's a big debate.
I think there's some kind of moats, but you need to be very strong, playing on the ones that are going to win here. They will have to be very good at everything from the hardware and how to optimize that hardware up to how to make the product around them and integrate that whole chain. And I think Google has been behind, but I think they're very strong at having have a great engineering team that have optimized data centers and optimized how to hardware optimize for large language models and so on. And they might just be able to compete with margins when everyone else is scrambling to get their same performance optimization as them. That's an example.
Do you see in general, there's now a big naturally bet on that the costs will go down drastically, which will naturally play for application layer companies to build sustainable businesses?
I think costs are definitely going to keep going down. 100%.
We actually had an interesting conversation here. I'm actually with the Growth Minds community on a ski trip right now. Last night we were talking about Grace Hopper, which of course is the NVIDIA cluster, but also was a real person. And she was responsible for building out the COBOL language and basically introducing a lot of radical changes related to the mainframe computers. So very much integration of hardware and software that is still 50 years later, the standard for all the financial system applications. So if you can figure out an extremely efficient, low-cost way to integrate those things, you might have this, very, very, very low-cost foundation that has a lot of foundation, like applications on top of it. Pretty interesting connection.
Yeah. I'd love to ask if there are any questions from the chat. I think that's super first. Since I see that there's a chat here on the right-hand side.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, no, good. Let's if there's any questions.
I've been following. There aren't any questions, but we had a quick round for you, Anton, like 10 questions here to kind of close things off with.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm getting one question here from one of our community members. What is something you've learned about generative AI in the past 3 to 6 months that surprised you?
And the one that comes to mind the fastest is how they trained the DeepSeek model. So they were able to. It's when you read the paper, and it's going to quite a lot of detail how they did it. It sounds very simple and stupid, and they just use one model and then they optimized it for their evaluation set. And then they piped the data for that model that was optimized for the different evaluation set, combine it with a lot of other data, and then that was pretty much it.
Should we go to our lightning round, Oliver?
Yeah, sure. No, I had so many more questions I would have loved to dig into, but we need to organize another webinar. 30 minutes goes fast. But Anton, we have some quick fires for you. So a yes or no, or you choose either or. So let's start with the first one: open weight AI or closed source AI.
Yeah, so I prefer open weights AI.
Open AI or Anthropic?
That's an easy one. Anthropic people are just much nicer, and their models are better currently.
Jensen Huang or Steve Jobs?
Ooh. I think I have to go with Steve Jobs, even though he's more crazy and maybe not as nice of a person, because he feels he has this extreme focus, whereas Jensen Huang is more loofy guy, seems like.
ImageNet moment or attention is all you need?
Attention.
KTH or Stanford?
I mean, I'd love to say KTH, but
you have to say KTH.
The ambition level at Stanford is just much higher, so I need to borrow that here to Sweden. That's the push. Ambition level is very high.
We need to make it KTH. San Francisco or Stockholm?
Stockholm, 100%.
Good. So reinforcement learning or supervised fine tuning?
Supervised fine tuning. It's predictable, fast, and cheap.
Data or compute?
Data.
Infrastructure or application layer?
Application layer.
There we go. Surprised. Will 2025 be the year of agents? Yes or no?
Yes. The first year, the first of money.
And the last but not least, will we have our first $1 trillion company from Europe before 2030?
Yes.
I got one for you, Anton. Are you still eating mostly chia seeds?
No, that is not the case, but I eat a lot of chia seeds.
You eat a lot of chia
Wonderful questions. The chia question was also fun, but wonderful questions, Oliver. I'd love to go deeper on some of them. Explain the choices.
Yeah,
Anton,
I think.
If we can just close off with, how can we help you right now to build the project that you're building, including EU ACC and just generally making Stockholm into a better place for founders?
Yeah. So I have two missions now. Like what I'm doing with the company, which is to enable the 99% who never learned how to code to create companies and create great, really, really good software, lovable software. So on the second one, building great companies from Europe on our technology is something I'd love to see people do and give us feedback. And so there's both, as I mentioned, entrepreneurs, there's designers and product managers love using it, and everyone who's out there as a consultant helping solve real problems with technology. They should be, they could, I'd love if they try our product and give us feedback on accelerating Europe. I think physical meetings talking about how we can increase the ambition level, and bringing people and talking to people who have left Stockholm or left Europe to come back and build from here, because we have an insane ecosystem. We have a lot of really strong momentum to build from here, and we have like tons of capital to invest in new companies. That's something I'd love people to do more.
Agreed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Anton, and thanks to all our listeners. This is a really vibrant conversation, and great to see so many folks interested in this topic. Anton, you promised to show us something from Lovable. Do you want to do a quick demo of a new release that you guys have launched recently?
Oh, I promised to show something new from Lovable. Oh, wow, let me see.
On the spot. Yeah.
Of course. So I'm going to show you how I create a website for you, Vincent. Let's see if this works. Share Lovable window. And you currently have something called Growth Minds.
Yes.
Is that true? I think it looks really good. I'm going to have a hard time making a better website than this one. But I'm going to try and take a screenshot and say, create.
Are you sharing, Anton, your screen?
I was trying.
Oh, yeah. Let me add it to the stage.
Exactly. I think that's. There we go.
I went to Vincent's website and I took a screenshot just of the top here, and I said, create a new version of this website with a different theme. And Oliver, you need to pick a quirky theme. What do you like?
80s space.
Oh, I was going to say Finnish sauna.
Yeah, that would have been the best one. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Lovable in action, just creating a very simple static website. What it's doing now is that it's combining knowledge that we've encoded into the system with RAG and multiple large language model calls, with the output of the final LLM that we're seeing here, where it's figuring out first how does it want it to look, and then starting to write code. So again, this is a static website. If you want to add login, which requires a backend, or you want to add data persistence, which you will need if you're building a real product, then you connect an open source backend as a service, which is called Superbase, by just creating a project and then clicking connect. So that's how Lovable works on a super high level. If you want to edit the code manually, you can do that by moving it to your GitHub and then open it in any VS Code, any code editor, or even open it here in the browser. So that's just a super quick level of Lovable. When you're done, you can publish it. So here we have a retro space, and that this is not something that I think surprises you. It looks acceptable UI wise. And what you would typically do is to ask for add more of the content on the website, right? And I can copy everything to get version number 2. And every time you do this, it takes a bit of time. Everyone who's seen Lovable is not surprised so far, but now I'm going to show you something new. So let's first wait with the change that I asked for now. Vincent, what do you think about the website so far? Do you like it?
It looks great by Oliver standards. I would still, of course, prefer some löyly and some sort of reeds to slap with the Finnish sauna theme.
80s space theme Finnish sauna. That's gonna be a first one. That combo.
But it's looking great. I mean, this is
Growing.
obviously
Yeah,
this would take me way longer to design, even in one of these abstraction products like Squarespace, right?
Right. What do you think about that? It says Retrospace here for your website.
Well, that's clearly not the brand, so we'd have to change that.
So we need to change that. And typically, what you would do with Lovable today is that you select this element and you say change it. But I'm going to show you something new. I'm going to click edit here, and then I'm going to select an element. Let me zoom to the right level. And then this is very much research preview. What I will do is that I'll see if I can edit the text on one of these specific elements here. Tables. Instead of having to ask the AI to edit it, I can say something like great community. I thought I can say. Can't edit text. Apparently this is not fully ready for releasing to production, but as you can imagine what it is.
That's fantastic. I mean, this is exactly the problem people have had with AI images for a long time, is that if you try to make small changes, it will everything changes, not just the one small thing that you're highlighting, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, it breaks too easily. That's nice. That's good.
There's no underlying logic of the universe in that sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Demigods were not with me 100% today to change the Retrospace text, but next demo you see of this, Vincent, you're going to have a perfect Growth Minds space vibe website.
Oh, yeah, well, thanks so much for demoing this, man. And it takes a lot of courage to do that in front of the 300 people we had sign up for this event. And thanks so much for joining and for spending a little bit of time as you promised. I know that we're grateful to have you, and I think we actually managed to over 3x increase the audience by waiting a few days here. So good call on that one as well.
Awesome, and it was a pleasure to chat with both of you. And this is what I just showed you now. It's going to be 2 weeks until you see this in action. But if you're on the scale plan, you will get early access. Here, that's my mandatory plug for clarifying the bugs in the current version. It was a pleasure to chat. I'm looking forward to more of this.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys so much. And Oliver, folks can follow you on LinkedIn. You have over 56,000 followers. Of course, Anton, I believe you guys did a sort of back smoky room deal where Anton gets Twitter and Oliver gets LinkedIn. But Anton, you're also quite active on LinkedIn. And then you guys can follow the Growth Minds community on LinkedIn. We're obviously hosting the event here, and we appreciate all the new followers that have come in. And if you're a leader looking to join our communities, apply on our website. And maybe we will have a new Lovable site as soon as this new release is launched. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks for watching. This recording was brought to you by Growth Minds. If you're a founder, executive, or board member navigating the challenges of scaling a company, and you would benefit from a community of people who are committed to improving themselves so that they can improve society, take a look at our website and apply at growthminds.org.